All right, let's jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer, everyone. Today, we are setting the stage for a deep dive into an 80-year-old mystery that has literally captivated the entire world. We're unpacking the newly declassified United States UFO files. For decades, this whole topic has been clouded by wild rumors, science fiction, and endless conspiracy theories. But recently, a wealth of actual official government data has been brought to light. So we're going to cut right through the noise to understand exactly what's in these files, what it means for our history, and what it reveals about modern technology. Okay, let's dive into this. Picture this. It's 2023 at an undisclosed location in America, and three different teams of highly trained federal agents witness something completely baffling. Over the course of 2 days, these 6 officers reported seeing this glowing, orange, ball-shaped object hovering in the sky. But it wasn't just sitting there. They described it acting almost like a mothership, literally launching smaller, red orbs right out of its wings. And this didn't just happen once. Not twice, but 5 separate times. This massive orange orb appeared, deployed these smaller red spheres that darted around, and then just vanished in a matter of seconds. But wait, this story actually gets crazier. The sequel to this sighting happened just 2 years later, in 2025. A senior intelligence official took a helicopter out to that exact same location, and sure enough, they encountered another hovering orb. But when the helicopter moved toward it to investigate, the orb instantly zipped 20 miles away. It moved so incredibly fast that the helicopter couldn't even attempt to follow it. And for 35 minutes, they just watched as this main orb launched 4 to 5 smaller ones before everything finally calmed down. No way, right? So that brings us to Section 1, the modern UFO mystery. Now, I really want to emphasize that these accounts we just talked about, they aren't just isolated anecdotes from a sci-fi movie. They are sworn statements provided to the U.S. government by trained, highly credible officials. And they completely challenge our fundamental understanding of aerodynamics and basic physics. So to address the mounting questions from the public, on May 8, 2026, the U.S. Department of War released 162 classified files to the public on their new webpage, war.gov/UFO. And this wasn't just a bunch of boring paperwork. This release included 28 never-before-seen videos and 14 images, pulling the whole shebang together: FBI documents, Pentagon reports, NASA transcripts, and State Department cables. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer variety and, frankly, the impossibility of these modern sightings. Check this out. In Greece in 2023, an object was recorded by infrared sensors taking 90-degree turns at 80 miles per hour right on the ocean's surface. A move like that completely shatters basic physics and inertia. Then, in Iraq in 2024, a high-speed object just blew past a military surveillance system. Over in Syria, these weird semi-transparent orange anomalies appeared and vanished instantly. And in Japan, in the Indo-Pacific, a bizarre football-shaped body with 3 distinct projections was documented. It's like a giant puzzle. Moving right along to Section 2, sightings in outer space. As fascinating as our own skies are, we actually have to look outside our atmosphere entirely, because astronauts have also reported some deeply unexplained phenomena. Back in 1965, during the Gemini 7 spaceflight, astronaut Frank Borman radioed Houston ground control with a classic military call-out. He said, "Bogey at 10 o'clock high." Now, ground control just assumed it was the spacecraft's own booster rocket, but Borman insisted he could see the booster separately. He was looking at a distinct, third unidentified object, flying right there in space with them. And look at this timeline. It maps out these incredible anomalies seen during the legendary Apollo missions. Buzz Aldrin saw flashing, laser-like lights during Apollo 11. The Apollo 12 crews reported unexplained flashes and particles at their landing site. And perhaps the most shocking one? During Apollo 17 in 1972, a photograph actually captured 3 distinct dots hovering in a triangular formation over the moon. Fast forward 54 years, and the U.S. government's preliminary analysis of these newly released files now suggests those triangular dots could actually be physical objects. Let's bring it back down to Earth for Section 3, the flying saucer era. So where did this whole thing actually begin? To truly grasp today's declassifications, we've got to look at the historical roots of this cultural obsession. It all kicked off in the pivotal summer of 1947. First, private pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing 9 shining objects flying at an impossible 1,200 miles per hour. When describing them, Arnold said they moved like saucers skipping across water, while the media totally misunderstood him. They focused on the shape rather than the movement, and accidentally coined the iconic term flying saucers. Just weeks later, Mac Brazel found some really strange debris in Roswell, New Mexico, and on July 8th, the local Army airfield actually issued a press release claiming they'd recovered a flying disc, only to completely retract the whole thing the very next day, claiming, oh, it was just a weather balloon. As you can imagine, that sequence of events spread like wildfire and triggered global hysteria. To investigate it, the U.S. government ran Project Blue Book from 1952 to 1969. They analyzed over 12,000 UFO sightings. Now, most of them were easily explained away as weather balloons, commercial planes, or just bright stars. But get this, exactly 701 cases were left completely unidentified. 701 times the government's absolute best investigators simply had no earthly explanation. Which leads us to Section 4, the hidden geopolitical pattern. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it signals a major turning point in our detective arc here, where we start finding some very rational earthly connections. I want you to think about this critical question for a second. If these are truly extraterrestrial beings traveling across the vastness of the cosmos, why on earth would they consistently choose to visit American military bases and highly monitored international conflict zones, instead of, say, random remote locations? Is it just a mere coincidence? Well, the answer seems to lie in this geographical comparison. Back in the 1950s and 60s, UFO hotspots were concentrated in the US, the Soviet Union, and Germany, literally the epicenters of the Cold War. Today, modern hotspots have shifted to Iraq, Syria, the Strait of Hormuz, and the Indo-Pacific. The sightings perfectly and consistently correlate with the exact locations where the U.S. military has deployed its most advanced monitoring systems during those specific decades. All right, Section 5, spy tech and cover-ups. So the crucial point is right here. This is where earthly explanations systematically dismantle those alien spaceship theories we've held on to for so long. Remember Roswell? In 1994 and 1997, the Air Force finally admitted the truth. It wasn't a standard weather balloon, but it absolutely wasn't aliens either. It was actually Project Mogul, a highly classified Cold War spy balloon designed to monitor Soviet nuclear tests. And those rumored alien bodies? Actually, scratch the alien theory entirely. They were simply test dummies used for aviation safety. The government basically allowed the public illusion of aliens to flourish because it served as the absolute perfect cover to hide their top-secret military reality from the Soviets. When we look at modern UFOs, the source material points out that they are overwhelmingly earthly. We're talking about classified U.S. military aircraft testing or foreign tech like Iranian and Houthi surveillance drones. Remember that high-altitude Chinese spy balloon shot down over the U.S. in 2023? Well, China also has mothership drones that can launch smaller craft, which sounds awfully similar to that 2023 glowing orb sighting we discussed earlier, doesn't it? And honestly, many are simply natural phenomena. Even Buzz Aldrin later stated that his laser sighting on the moon might have just been a reflection of the sun off an Earth lake. Finally, let's get into Section 6, decoding the real motives. So we've seen the history, we've seen the spy tech, but you're probably wondering, why release all these files right now? What's the real motive here? First, let's look at the official stance. The All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or ARO, was established by the Defense Department in 2022 to officially investigate all of this. And in February 2024, they published a massive report. Their official conclusion? Zero evidence of extraterrestrial technology, zero evidence of government reverse engineering. Most UFOs, they firmly stated, are just ordinary drones, balloons, and satellites. However, the timing and the sheer lack of context with these releases have definitely raised some eyebrows. The source material notes some fascinating theories suggested by former ARO officials and others. They propose that the Trump administration's release of these files without proper context or analysis might actually be an intentional, strategic media distraction. The idea is that fueling this pseudoscience diverts public attention away from political failures and controversies, specifically pointing to things like the Epstein files. It's a really interesting perspective presented in the source. Which brings us to this incredibly powerful quote from the source. Mystery thrives where transparency is absent. I mean, that beautifully summarizes this entire 80-year saga, doesn't it? When governments hide their advanced spy technology, even when it's for completely legitimate national security reasons, and they allow misinformation to just circulate, they unintentionally give birth to decades of alien conspiracy theories. And that leaves us with this final, provocative thought to close out our explainer today. If the overwhelming evidence points not to the stars, but to earthly spy tech, foreign surveillance, and natural phenomena, what is the true purpose of continuous government disclosure? Are they finally aiming for real transparency, or is it just a calculated maneuver in an era of information warfare? I'll leave you to ponder that one. Thank you so much for learning with me and decoding this fascinating topic together. Keep questioning, keep analyzing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.